Welcome to This Explainer. I am incredibly pumped to unpack renowned management expert Ken Blanchard's transformative and honestly pretty surprising leadership framework with you today. We're going to explore a paradigm that totally challenges traditional corporate structures and proves that flipping the standard hierarchy entirely upside down might literally be the secret to ultimate success. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about all the great leaders and CEOs in history for a second. Now ask yourself, who was the greatest one-minute manager of all time? Well, Blanchard, who's actually famous for co-authoring the massive business bestseller The One-Minute Manager, was asked this exact question during a television interview years ago. And the answer he received? It completely caught him off guard. The answer he was given was Jesus of Nazareth. Now, hold on. What's absolutely crucial to understand here is that Blanchard isn't analyzing this historical figure from a religious or theological standpoint at all. Instead, he's looking at him neutrally, purely as an ultimate pioneer of organizational management. Think about the basic concepts of modern management, right? Setting clear goals, walking among your people to offer praise, and delivering swift one-minute reprimands when things step out of line, like clearing out the moneylenders from the temple. It's just a fascinating, purely structural lens through which to view a famous historical figure.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the leadership mindset shift. Then, we'll examine the ultimate leadership model, followed by the actual mechanics of flipping the leadership pyramid. We'll confront the enemy within, which is our ego, look at servant leadership in action, and finally, compare success versus true significance. Let's see how all of this connects to drive massive business results.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the leadership mindset shift, and how our thoughts literally dictate our energy. Blanchard demonstrates this shift with a really brilliant audience exercise. He asks a room of professionals to spend 30 seconds greeting each other as if the other person is entirely unimportant. And as you can imagine, the room goes dead quiet. There's zero eye contact and the energy just plummets. But then he tells them to greet each other as if they are long-lost friends. Instantly, the room erupts with hugs, laughter, and soaring energy. He didn't give them specific behavioral instructions on how to act. He simply changed what was in their minds. Blanchard compares the human mind to a computer. It operates on a strict garbage in, garbage out principle. The mind really doesn't know the difference between objective truth and what you simply tell it. If we change how a leader thinks, their energy and ultimately their behavior transforms instantly. Moving right along to Section 2, the ultimate leadership model. Let's look at how advanced situational leadership was actually used in history. And this brilliantly illustrates how situational leadership works in practice. Blanchard points out that Jesus was managing a team of 12 highly inexperienced, let's just say, incompetent followers. You obviously couldn't use a hands-off management style with them on day one. So he used situational leadership, adapting his style across 4 distinct steps based on the team's growing capacity. Step 1 is directing, giving strict, clear instructions, like telling them exactly where to stay and what to wear. As they developed, he moved to Step 2, coaching, and then Step 3, supporting. Finally, he reached Step 4, delegating. By the end, he simply gave them the high-level vision to go and make disciples and fully trusted them to execute it. The big takeaway here? A truly great leader constantly adapts their style as their people grow. So let's look at the actual mechanics of this framework in Section 3, flipping the leadership pyramid and redefining corporate structure. When people hear servant leadership, they sometimes panic. They worry it means the inmates are running the prison and there's absolutely zero direction. But there are actually 2 distinct halves to this equation. First is the leadership part. That's vision, direction, and values. This absolutely must go top down. If your people don't know where the organization is going, they are never going to get there. But once that direction is set, you move to the servant part. This is where you take that traditional pyramid and turn it completely upside down for implementation. The hierarchy now works bottom up. Management literally exists to serve the frontline workers, equipping them so they can best serve the customers. Blanchard uses a fantastic, vivid metaphor to contrast what happens in these 2 different structures. In a rigid, traditional hierarchy, frontline workers are not empowered at all. So they act like ducks, bureaucrats who just hide behind rules and go, quack, quack, I didn't make the rules, quack, quack, it's our policy. But when you flip that pyramid, you empower your frontline workers to become eagles. Eagles soar above the crowd and simply say, I'll take care of it. Blanchard actually experienced this firsthand when he forgot his ID, what he jokingly calls his geezer pouch, at an airport. Because Southwest Airlines empowers their people like eagles rather than ducks, An employee used common sense and let him fly using a copy of a book featuring Blanchard's own face as identification. They were actually empowered to use their brains.
But if this is so great, why isn't every organization doing it? Well, that brings us to Section 4, the enemy within, which is ego, the primary barrier to service.
Blanchard defines ego as edging God out. Or, if you prefer a non-religious framework, you can think of it as edging out your core values. The human ego is the main barrier that stops leaders from adopting this upside-down model. Overcoming it requires a radical level of self-awareness. In fact, Blanchard talks about executives holding egos anonymous meetings. Imagine this: top leaders standing up, introducing themselves as egomaniacs, and literally confessing times in just the last 48 hours when their ego hindered their leadership. It requires immense vulnerability to admit when you're leading just to be served, rather than to serve. Now, what's truly fascinating about this concept is that ego isn't just arrogance. Sure, we have false pride, feeling like you are inherently more than others, maybe smarter or more important. We all recognize that as ego. But self-doubt and fear, feeling like you are less than others, is actually an ego problem too. Why? Because your focus is still entirely on yourself. Whether you are puffing yourself up or tearing yourself down, you're obsessing over yourself, which completely edges out your ability to focus on serving your team. Okay, so does this inverted pyramid actually translate into hard business results? Let's look at Section 5, Servant Leadership in Action, through the absolutely phenomenal WD-40 case study. Under the leadership of President Gary Ridge, the WD-40 company applied these exact servant leadership principles to create what they called their tribe model. First, they radically rejected the standard corporate bell curve. Instead of a forced ranking system where a certain percentage of employees are basically mandated to fail, their philosophy is to coach everyone to an A. They set 3 to 5 clear, observable, measurable goals. Managers hold bi-weekly one-on-one meetings to focus exclusively on what the employee needs to succeed. And this is wild. The quarterly report cards are filled out by the employee themselves. The manager's job isn't to judge them from on high, but simply to agree or disagree with that self-assessment and figure out exactly how to help them get that A. Let's see how this builds into real, undeniable data. When surveyed, a staggering 98.7% of WD-40 employees reported being proud to tell people they work there. Furthermore, 98.5% of employees stated they are completely clear on what they're asked to do to be a high performer. This completely validates that top-down vision combined with bottom-up implementation works seamlessly. Everyone knows the exact target, and everyone is fully supported in hitting it. And all of this culminates in one mind-blowing number: a 92% total employee engagement score. If you follow corporate metrics at all, you know an engagement score of 92% is practically unheard of. It firmly proves that servant leadership isn't just some feel-good theory. It directly drives massive human satisfaction and elite business success. Finally, we reach Section 6, Success versus True Significance. This is all about the internal paradigm shift required to sustain the servant mindset over an entire career. So the crucial point really comes down to what we value. The world views success mostly through metrics like money, recognition, and power or status. And look, there's nothing inherently wrong with making a profit or having a big title. But if you rely on those things for your self-worth, you will always desperately need more of them just to feel valuable. A servant leader completely shifts their core focus to significance. Instead of just accumulating money, they focus on generosity, giving their time, talent, and treasure. Instead of chasing recognition, they prioritize true service. And instead of seeking power, they actively cultivate loving relationships. It's a total internal rewiring of what actually matters. Which brings us to a really provocative final question for your own self-reflection. Are you leading to be served, or are you leading to serve? Because if you can manage your ego, flip that traditional pyramid upside down, and empower the people around you to become eagles rather than ducks, you won't just achieve temporary success. You'll achieve lasting significance. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope these concepts inspire you to implement this powerful paradigm in your own life.